Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind Podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Monday. It is September 25th. It is 2023. We are going to talk about the two-game football slate for Monday Night Football, the last two-game Monday Night Football slate that we have until Week 14. And we'll talk about the three-game baseball slate as we kick off the last week of the regular season for baseball. Only three games. Weird start time. The start time for baseball is like 9:30 on the East Coast. So very late start. And so Keith, how are you doing? Week 3 NFL kind of in the books. I know the Steelers are playing as we're recording. TC says all those Falcon running back props. Yeah, one of the things that I got wrong, Bijan was one of them. Bijan and Kelly still had a decent day in football. It was going to be a really bad day, and then my love for Thielen kind of saved me because he was one of my highest owned players on both sites and saved some teams to make it a slightly profitable day. Really good NASCAR day. Absolutely smashed the NASCAR race, even with my highest owned driver getting wrecked with 40 laps to go while leading the race. So, and he didn't get wrecked. He lost control of the car and wrecked. I don't want people to come at me because, he lost control. But Keith, how was week 3 for you? How are you doing?
Breaking news, Stevie. Your Finns just scored another touchdown. Like what in the world, man? That offense looks absolutely unstoppable. No Jalen Waddle. They plug A-Chain right in, and dude just goes berserk. The Denver defense is obviously pathetic as well, but the Dolphins offense looks unstoppable. Good week overall for me. Another profitable one. I had a bunch of teams that I was close on. My biggest mistake was I played too much chalky Josh Kelly. Dude doesn't have it. We need Eckler back on the field, so we don't have to mess with him anymore. But I had a lot of Thielen as well, a ton of Keenan Allen. People were all over Mike Williams because he was so cheap. I made it a priority to spend up for Keenan Allen, tried to jam in as much Jefferson and Tyreek as I could as well. Had a decent amount of Mostert, was a nice little pivot there. But yeah, good day overall. Just didn't quite put everything together to get to the top of anything, but solid profit again. That's 3 weeks in a row. Can't complain. Shout out to Tim. Tasteful Tides had a big takedown. I saw took down the 444 on DraftKings and a couple other. He had a huge day.
Yeah, congratulations to Tim. Very regular guest on the podcast. Love seeing that. The dude is a grinder and typically like a single entry guy. So I didn't see what he took down, but I assumed that it had potentially a single entry thought on it. So congratulations to Travis Kelce. You are the most popular person in the NFL. Yeah, so my wife is very much into the Travis Kelce Tay relationship. She's like, can't wait to see the photos. I can't wait to see the photos. So but yeah, really good day. Glad to see Tim have a big takedown. And like I said, NFL solid. I nailed my wide receivers. I think outside of Mike Thomas and Nico Collins were two duds I had at wide receiver. But outside of that, man, just absolutely nailed wide receivers. Running backs was iffy. Tight ends was kind of iffy for me. I had a lot of Ertz, and he stunk up the field. So played a lot of Smythe. Played a lot of
the popular Chief ones. Yep.
But we have a 2-game Monday night slate. So we're going to talk football first, and then we'll talk about the 3-game baseball slate. Football kicks off at 7:30 or 7:15 Eastern. And then the baseball games, like I said, kick off at 9:30, 8 or something like that. So we'll talk football here first. Morning grind style. We're going to go game by game and break down each team like we normally do. Let's talk Philadelphia at Tampa Bay first. This game has a 45 total. Both of these games solid, by the way. Philadelphia, 4.5-point favorite. Looking at Philly first. Two really good run defenses so far through the first 2 games. I think this is going to be a game where we're going to see a lot of passing just in general. Boston Scott ruled out for Philadelphia. Gainwell back with the rib injury. We saw DeAndre Swift, kind of do his thing last week. 28 carries, 170 or 175 yards or something like that. He had a monster game against Minnesota. So let's just talk Philly first here. Obviously Gainwell coming back, 62% of the snaps week 1. How are we approaching Philadelphia this week?
Yeah, I think the running back position is really important here. I could see Swift getting a little bit popular. He's been a dynamic pass catcher in his career, like with Detroit. That's the role that he had. With Gainwell back, I'm a little bit concerned that Gainwell is the guy that's going to get the passing down work. He out-targeted Swift. He had 4 targets to Swift's 3 targets in the week 1 game that they played together. So I want the pass catching back here. You mentioned Tampa Bay's defense is really stout. I think Swift is going to be way more popular just because of the nuclear game he had against Minnesota. I feel like he gets a little too chalky here in a bad matchup for just the ground game. I like the pivot to Gainwell. I think Hurts is going to be the most popular quarterback. He is the only rushing quarterback on the slate. We love the floor there. Certainly stack him. It's going to be expensive. I don't think you're fitting in a double stack of like Hurts, Brown, and Devonta Smith is a little bit too expensive to fit in on when we don't have very many value options. So probably a single stack on Hurts, targeting that rushing upside, and you're hoping that he runs one in. That will certainly be something I think I have a bunch of. And the Philly defense, of course, in play as well against Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I mean, pretty straightforward offense. They looked at A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith as much as possible. They combined for 75% of the first look on dropbacks this season between the two of them. So where Hurts wants to go with the ball as soon as he's dropping back to throw the football. He wants to go to Brown or Smith. I think they both have incredible ceilings. They have the same amount of target share. They were really, really close in routes, and Devontae Smith has come off the field. Maybe I think it was like 2 snaps all season. So he's a stud. So yeah, just overall, I have a ton of interest in Hurts, Brown, Smith. Very, very slight interest in Goddard, because I do think like he's going to be a pretty popular tight end play on this 2-game slate, just because like he has an established role. We'll talk about the tight end on the other side of this game. I like him a lot here. As far as the running back situation goes, I really think it'd be a 50-50 split. They didn't get Penny involved in the running game last week, even with Scott banged up and Swift kind of doing his thing. They didn't get Penny involved until very late in that game when Scott was like fully off the field. Really feel like this is going to be a split backfield. Gainwell's cheaper if he's going to get the same kind of workload and potentially catching the ball in the backfield, but I don't. We don't have
ownership. We don't have ownership up yet. Do you have similar thoughts that Swift is probably the more popular guy just because of
because
of
what he
week.
Just did? Yeah, game log checkers they're going to see he scored 30 fantasy points last week.
Yep.
So, and that was a game that we were all watching that game. That was a fantastic game. That Philadelphia Minnesota game was a fantastic game. So, that's kind of it. Like I said, I don't have a ton of interest in Goddard. He just really hasn't been heavily involved here. 14% target share, just not really getting involved too much here. And I think, like I said, I think he projects as like the highest scoring tight end on the slate between the 4 guys that are expected to start. So, Tampa side, hey, listen, don't look now, but like Baker Mayfield and the Tampa offense is kind of quietly rolling. Philadelphia is a pass funnel defense. They want you to throw the ball on them. They have allowed 52 rushing yards per game through the first 2 games. They've allowed 340 passing yards per game. They have been getting torched through the air and just absolutely dominating the run. And I think Baker Mayfield is super playable today. 5,500, cheapest of the 4 quarterbacks. Love cheap quarterbacks when we have skill players to pay up for in the slate, and we have plenty of those. So I have a ton of interest in Baker Mayfield. This might be a spot that I leave White on the table. I will say that like of the 4, 5, 6 potential running backs that are playable, he has probably the most upside out of the passing game. So like you could look at it that way for White. And then as far as the passing game, I mean, Evans has been the main target here. I don't rule out Godwin. And I think Otten is a fantastic tight end play if you want to triple stack with Mayfield in this spot, going one of Evans and Godwin and then pairing it back with an Otten. Also a spot that I think you could play Baker with Evans and Godwin. I think Tampa is one of those teams that I'll probably triple stack the most on this slate.
Yeah, I love the Baker Mayfield call. You just look back to last week on the 2-game slate, what Squirrel Patrol did, playing Bryce Young just because he was the lowest owned quarterback on the slate. I feel like Baker comes in here. It depends on Joe Burrow's status a little bit, obviously. But people are going to Stafford before they're going to Baker, in my opinion. So love that call. Philly has you've been able to pass on them, even though they have a great defense. Their receivers are really cheap too, and that's what makes this stack so attractive. Evans is only 6,300, Godwin at 5,700. I think Godwin is actually the guy I prefer in this spot. Seeing the targets as he always has, hasn't found the end zone yet, hasn't went over 100 yards yet. So I think Godwin gets super involved here. 5,700 is just a really attractive price tag. And I love your Cade Otton call as well. He's been involved, 6 targets last week. Like, he hasn't done a ton with them, hasn't found the end zone yet, but a guy that's involved, only 3K, I'm certainly interested in that. Like, deep tournament throws, like, we're going to need some of those on this slate just to differentiate some chalky lineups. Like, Trey Palmer has some big play potential. He's that guy that he's 3,100. He could pay that off with 140-yard touchdown catch. So he's a guy I would sprinkle in just a little bit.
For what it's worth, too, on Otten, just this whole slate. So all 4 teams, looking at the whole slate as a whole, he has the second highest snap percentage of any skill player on the slate. The only person that has played more snaps than him percentage wise is Devontae Smith from the other side of this game. So just throwing that out there. One of the reasons that I like him is he doesn't come off the field, and that equals opportunity. And I think he's cheap enough where, I mean, all he needs is a touchdown, and he's off to the races for you. You just need him to outscore Higbee and Goddard. I don't think we'll be really looking at the Cincinnati tight ends situation this week, but we'll talk about it in a minute. Let's go to that game. We got the Rams and the Bengals, 43.5 total here. Cincinnati a 1.5 point favorite. You already mentioned it. Joe Burrow, the news that we're watching here, took first team reps in the walkthrough on Sunday. Fully expect him to play for what it's worth. I'd be shocked if he doesn't play. They're off to a terrible start. They need a W bad to get on track. And if he can play, I feel like he'll be good to go. Let's talk Rams first here. Just a team that Stafford's getting hit a ton. We'll start with the offensive line. They have been atrocious at blocking. Just bad. So Stafford's getting hit a bunch. I will say, like, pressure rate wise, Cincinnati ranks one of the lowest in the league. So maybe this is a spot that, like, Stafford has a little bit more time to throw. But I mean, Puka he has a 45% first read percentage. Like, Stafford snapping the ball, dropping back, and where is Puka? So I mean, we all, like, took a step back, and after week 1, we're like, all right, was that a fluke? 20 targets. He has 35 targets through the first 2 weeks. He has 20 targets against the 49ers in week 2. I think we can assume that until Cooper Kupp comes back, he is going to be a very, very main focal point of this offense.
Yeah, I mean, Nakua, like, he's a guy that you can't fade right now, in my opinion. It's Cooper Kupp for 6,400. That's 3,000 at least, too cheap. I don't see any reason the role would change. It's the same personnel, a little change at the running back position, but that really doesn't affect him much. And as far as Stafford goes, I feel like I can just play Puka, and, like, you literally get half of Stafford's production just by playing Puka. So I think I'll have more Mayfield than Stafford. It's going to be an ownership play, but I feel like the field will gravitate towards Stafford. He's had a little bit more success. So yeah, I mean, if Stafford gets popular, I'm comfortable going underweight on him, but still playing plenty of Puka. Tutu Atwell has had a very nice role as well. 17 targets through 2. It's no Puka, but he is definitely the number 2 option in this offense. Still only 5K. Like, all these guys are underpriced. If Higbee is low owned, I don't mind taking a shot there. He did see a better role in week 2 than in week 1, so certainly don't mind going back to that. I think double tight end is viable on 2-game slates as well. Like it's not a very strong tight end slate, so maybe Higbee is a lower owned option in this offense. If I'm playing Stafford, certainly like double or triple stacking is in play. And then we have to talk about the running back. Kyren Williams has looked amazing, taking over the role. He's found the end zone 3 times in 2 games. There's nobody to challenge him here, really. I don't think. Like the backups aren't very talented. Williams is only 5,700 and should have the lead role here. So he's going to be a very popular running back play, but just the volume that he's getting, I don't think I have any interest in fading him.
No, I think he's the top running back play on the slate, and I think Mixon is right there with him, and we'll talk about him in just a second. But where I don't necessarily love the running backs in the first game, I love the running backs in the second game. And I expect them to be, somewhat popular in this spot just in general. So, but yeah, Puka, Tutu, Higbee, all in play. Love the Williams call. 81% of the snaps, attempting, almost 50% of the rushing attempts for this team this season. And that number is a little lower because Akers was here and had some workload, but Akers is gone, and they are fully committed to Williams at this point. And like you said, I mean, like competition wise, like this dude is set up to be a 3-down back. And unless he gets hurt or something, I mean, we really don't expect like Royce Freeman or Ronnie Rivers. I don't even think Freeman's up with the team right now. So like Ronnie Rivers is the potential backup here.
They did elevate Freeman last week for whatever that's worth, and with Akers out of town, I'm sure that he'll be active on game day. But like we know what Royce Freeman is. There's no talent there. There's no burst. He's a guy that's been floating or like hanging on the edge of NFL rosters for like 3 years now.
So yeah, I love Williams. Like you said, it's hard to fade Puka, but everyone's kind of thinking that. So like if you're playing him, where are you going to get different is how you got to kind of think about that to yourself.
Yep.
Other side of this game, Cincinnati. I mean, obviously, we'll wait to see like if it's going to be Burrow or not, and he's going to be playing or not. If he doesn't play, it's Jake Browning, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just signed Will Greer off the street, I think, like this week. So no, that was the Patriots actually.
No, the Patriots signed Will Greer.
Yeah. At third? It'll be Browning for sure. But I'm with you. I think Burrow plays.
Yeah, it would be Browning, but I think Burrow plays. Let's talk about this team. I mean, the Rams defense hasn't been anything special to start the season, so I do think this is an interesting spot. They have been pretty good against the pass, so like maybe this is a spot where Burrow's kind of banged up and they lean on Joe Mixon. The running back slate's not the greatest anyway. He doesn't have like direct competition. I mean, you could potentially say like Chris Evans, but I mean, he's going to be back. He had a hamstring or something last week, missed the game. But I mean, Williams and Evans are there, but Mixon's going to play 70+% of the snaps. And with Burrow banged up, I think that's kind of where I lean, is looking at Mixon. And then I will say, like, the passing game, Chase, Higgins, and Boyd, they run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, and all 3 of these guys are viable. The tight end situation, I think, is Drew Sample is a guy that doesn't warrant a lot of targets. He's used a lot to like block. And I mean, that's probably what he'll end up doing. I don't even think like I touch the tight end situation for Cincinnati. Like, if I was going to play anybody, it'd be Sample, but I don't think I'm touching that. Irv Smith like has played like 65% of the snaps, and he's run a route on 68% of the dropback. So like he does have a role to be filled. I just think they fill it with like getting Boyd more involved with Higgins and Chase more than anything else.
So I had to look it up because I knew they just signed a quarterback. AJ McCarron is the name that I was looking for there.
Yep.
He probably knows the system. He was with them a couple of years ago, wasn't he? I think he's just there for emergency insurance as the number 2 guy. It'll be Browning if Burrow is out, but assuming that Burrow is in there, like the pass catchers are certainly where I'm looking. Mixon definitely in play. I want to find a secondary running back to play in this spot because they've been reluctant to give Mixon all of the passing work in the last couple of years, but it seems like they just don't trust any of these guys. Evans missed last week. I kind of thought he would be the guy that had the passing game role. Trevion Williams played last week and only had 2 targets, so it feels like Mixon's going back to that workhorse type role. 6,300 for that role is very intriguing. So yeah, he's certainly in play. I think that's where I would look first, but you can't deny the talent at the wide receiver position. Chase and Higgins have immense upside. Haven't seen that nuclear game from Jamar Chase. Have to see what the ownership looks like, but like if people are playing the Eagles guys and leaving Chase on the shelf in this one, it's certainly a spot that I would be very interested in. But I'm probably going to play the ownership game with the top tier of wide receivers. If A.J. Brown comes in super chalky and Chase is very low owned, then I probably end up with quite a bit of Jamar Chase. Higgins certainly in play, still too cheap for what he's capable of, coming off of a huge game against Baltimore. 12 targets. Look, like he's a wide receiver 1. If this offense starts clicking, like these guys have just enormous ceiling. Boyd had a nice role last week as well. He's still only 3,500. I think Boyd may be somebody that I incorporate quite a bit. He's not a guy that a ton of people like to play, it seems like. He usually comes in lower owned. Like the ceiling is not necessarily there, but if he's going to get 8 targets again, certainly interested in that for 3,500. I'm completely with you on the tight ends. Like they're not really pass catchers. They're more blocking guys. I like Otten and Goddard seem like much better bets, and even Higbee.
Yeah, Higbee too. I mean, I think Boyd kind of fits into that role where they use him a little bit more this week because Irv Smith is out, and maybe that's the guy that benefits the most from Irv Smith being out of this game. So
yeah.
And like you could play Boyd and just leave salary on the table and not like try to make your lineup weird. So yeah, very interesting little 2-game slate. Much better, I feel like, than last week's 2-game slate.
Yeah, 2-game slate, you can always do weird things like leave a couple $1,000 on the table. Playing several offensive players against your defense is something that I always make sure to do. If you're building a lineup script in Lineup HQ, make sure you bump that offense versus defense number up, because I believe it defaults to 0, and you definitely don't want it at 0 on these types of slates.
Yep. I plug in my defense last, and like whatever I have money wise, I don't even care. Like I could literally have Tampa defense against Hurts because I don't care.
Yep.
I think defense is so random anyway. And I think that it's even more random on a 4-game slate with 4 really solid offense. I know, listen, Cincinnati, they're like graded as one of the worst offenses so far this season. They're going to get rolling. Let's be honest. They're going to get rolling. So
way too much talent here.
All right, we got baseball. Hey, baseball season's still going. This is that last week of the regular season. So it will be a week that we're obviously talking a lot more about standings and where everybody's at. We're going to be talking about some call-ups, some people that are trying to prove themselves, all kinds of stuff here down the stretch. But, looking at it through the weekend, we got Rays and Orioles. They're still clinched for the wild card. Baltimore gained a couple games on the Rays here over the weekend, so they're 2.5 games up for the AL East. AL Central clinched. Minnesota Twins have clinched the AL Central. And the AL West is wide open. Rangers, Astros, Mariners, very important series that we're going to talk about here in just a minute with Houston in Seattle. Huge series there. So National League wise, Braves 100 wins. Congratulations to Braves fans. That team looks like it's going to be incredible for the next 10 years. What a job by the management team. But they've obviously clinched the NL East. They're a couple games up on they're a couple games up on the Dodgers for best in the NL. Best in baseball, too. They're a couple games up on Baltimore for that. And then the NL Central, the Brewers have clinched a wild card, and I think they need one more game to beat the Cubs. One more game, and I think it's over as far as, like, the Brewers would have to lose out, and I think the Cubs would have to win out for the Cubs to have a chance to win the NL Central. And then the Dodgers clinched the NL West. So as someone that has the Giants over 77.5 wins, I need one more win. Just one. So yeah, I mean that kind of updates that as far as wild card stuff. That's a lot more where the playoff picture is right now. Watching some of this wild card stuff play out. Obviously Tampa looks really good. They're in. Yeah, they've already clinched the wild card. So the American League wild card right now, Tampa's clinched, and it's Toronto, Houston, Seattle fighting for that 2 of those 3 spots that are left. So like I said, Houston-Seattle series that we're going to talk about here early this week. Huge series for playoff stuff. So the NL side, the Philadelphia Phillies are I think they're 1 or 2 games away from clinching a wild card spot. So they're really close. And then Arizona and Chicago are neck and neck. Arizona's up a half a game right now on Chicago. And then Miami and Cincinnati are the other 2 teams that still remotely have a chance. Technically, San Diego and San Francisco could win out, and some wild stuff could happen where other teams lose out to potentially make it. But mathematically, San Diego and San Francisco are still alive. So that updates the playoff stuff. We'll be talking about it all week. Not my favorite week of the baseball season, but when we get into this weekend, that's when it gets really fun, when you have teams there's a lot of teams that are still fighting for stuff, where I feel like last year we got to this point where it's pretty much set. So a lot more fun this year when it comes to the playoff stuff. So yeah, let's talk baseball. Like I said, 3-game slate, 4 games total. Arizona and New York playing that early game. We get started with Texas at LA taking on the Angels. 9 total in this game. The Rangers, a 180 favorite. Gray and Sandoval facing off against each other. John Gray is 6,400. Only threw 40 pitches last time out. It wasn't good. It was ugly. Boston was beating him up pretty bad. They ended up, I think, coming back and beating Boston by a lot in that game. But anyway, John Gray has been awful recently. The Angels lineup is awful. I think a lot of ownership on Blake Snell, and I think you should. He should be the first guy in your lineup today. But what are your thoughts here on John Gray?
Yeah, it's been a very rough patch here for John Gray. He's given up at least three earned runs in his last 6 starts. They've had an extremely quick hook with him as well, and rightfully so. They're fighting for the AL West title, like you mentioned. So I fear that same extremely quick hook is coming. If he's not having success, they're going to have no problem yanking him out of this game and going to a long man. So I don't think anyone's going here, though, is my only thing. And I feel like if he's going well, he can throw 90 to 100 pitches. So the upside for 6,400 is intriguing. It's going to be an ownership thing for me. This Angels lineup, like you mentioned, is very bad. Ohtani's out the door. Trout announced not coming back. There's nobody left here. Rendon's out for the season. I think it's viable to take some shots just because of the price. More than likely he gives up a few runs and he throws 60 to 80 pitches and it doesn't work out. But I think it's a 3-game slate and you need to find a way to get different. Blake Snell is going to be mega chalk. Paying up for Castillo or Verlander is going to be the other popular method. I think some shots on John Gray and just hoping those other 2 guys have tougher matchups. They're 2,000 and almost 3,000 more. So I think taking some shots on Gray is viable. It's not comfortable though.
Oh no, nothing comfortable about it. This is a guy, his strikeout rate's down almost 5% from last season to this season. His strikeout rate has been up a little bit here recently, but he honestly hasn't been pitching as much, like Keith kind of pointed out. Been absolutely getting shelled. This is one of those things, one of the things about some of these teams being in it and being very close is if a pitcher like John Gray gets in trouble, like you said, they have no problem hooking this guy really early. Every game matters for Texas right now. They're in the driver's seat in this division, and every game matters. this offense is awful. I could see John Gray putting up like 15 to 20 points with Castillo and Verlander facing off against each other. I'm not playing Patrick Sandoval on the other side of this game. So I just think that like on 2 pitcher sites, he's viable. He's okay. He's okay on a 3-game slate. I just said it. I'm not touching Patrick Sandoval. I think this is a really tough spot for Sandoval. His control issues could be a huge problem for him against this patient offense. Yeah, no interest for me in Patrick Sandoval today.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I just don't see the upside against this Texas offense. They're elite now that are back healthy.
Yep.
Like with Jung back in the lineup, and Garcia missed some time there. They were struggling for a good stretch, 3 weeks or so. They're back on track now. They're one of the top offenses in baseball. Sandoval has had a down season. I'd rather take shots on Gray than Sandoval.
Yeah, they have that luxury of like giving Lowe the day off and getting Duran or Grossman in there to give them two more strong right-handed hitters. Yeah, just overall, just a really tough spot overall for Patrick Sandoval. So looking at the Texas bats, you mentioned Jung and Garcia, fantastic options here against the lefty. Definitely a team I'm considering stacking. Like the bullpen has been awful for the Angels here, and I think that this is a spot. If Sandoval struggles with command, they're going to put it on him. If he starts walking 3 or 4 guys, this is a Texas team that can really start putting it on him. He only threw like 2 or 3 innings against Texas earlier this year because he was walking a ton of people. I think he walked like 6 guys. So very interested in Texas bats here.
Yeah, one of the, if not the top stack on the slate. I mean, I think they have the best matchup on the slate. Like we have pretty talented pitching on this slate, despite there only being 3 games. So Texas is, for me, in the best spot, and I think you can go really deep on this lineup. I don't mind Grossman against lefties, and Leody Taveras has been very good against lefties. So if you wanted to start at the bottom and wrap it around, I'm perfectly fine with that. They probably gained some popularity. It's only 3 games, so we're looking for ways to get different. The bottom of the Texas order is very much in play. Both of the catchers are down there as well. So I love this matchup for them. Like I mentioned, an elite offense in baseball. So top stack on the slate for me.
All right, moving on. Oh, do you have any interest in the Angels bats? My bad.
Yeah, I mean, we bash on them a little bit because there's not a ton of talent in this lineup, but John Gray has had a ton of struggles here recently. He hasn't been striking out a ton of guys. I think he can take some shots here. Maybe more of a 3-man, just because I don't see the Angels just going off and being the highest scoring team on the slate. But I guess if John Gray has his typical struggles, maybe that upside is raised. O'Hoppe at catcher, I think is one of my favorite options. Chanel, first baseman, still cheap, certainly in play. Moustakas has been okay. They're really cheap. So if you're trying to double pay up for pitching, I certainly don't mind. 3 of these Angels bats, full stack because of the matchup, I suppose, is in play. But I think I'd rather take a chance on one of the more elite offenses in worse matchups rather.
Yeah, I mean, for me on the Angels, I think you want to see what the lineup looks like because, I mean, there's been so many moving pieces in this lineup. I think I look for power, right? I look for Mike Moustakas, Joe Adell, like just guys that have that like home run upside. Grichuk hitting leadoff, I don't necessarily hate that. Brent Phillips, if he's in there, he'll probably hit towards the bottom of the order. He won't have a ton of ownership. At 2,400, like this is a dude that he's got a chance to play, and what better to try to get yourself a lineup spot somewhere next year than like finishing the last week of the season really strong. So at one point, Brett Phillips was a really talented like prospect that was talked about a lot, and just could be a good spot for someone like that. Like that's what we're looking for this week, like this week of the season. Jared Walsh, guys like that. Joe Adell, like he's had opportunities. He needs to prove himself. Big power, like just attack these guys. If John Gray is struggling, I could see like 2 or 3 of these guys working out here. Houston at Seattle, game of the day. Obviously 3-game slate, so it's not saying much, but 7 total. Seattle, slight 120 favorite, pretty much a pick 'em everywhere. Verlander and Castillo, two studs on the hill. I mean, my initial thought, Keith, is big game Verlander here. 8,500, and Seattle is a team that is beatable when you can attack them. And even with Justin Verlander struggles this year, like he can still attack offenses. Like I think this is going to be one of those spots we just see Verlander show up and have a big game.
Man, I'm on the same boat, and I think this is going to be a huge decision point on the slate. I think Blake Snell is going to be an extremely popular option, and then people are going to figure out a way to get in one of these two guys. Like hearing you say, like I feel like maybe Verlander picks up quite a bit of ownership here in this spot, and then we have to make a decision on what to do. But I'm with you. Like I feel like he steps up here. Like he's back in Houston where he's comfortable. He's been pitching really great. They haven't really extended him much. But Verlander's a guy we know can go out there and throw 110, 115 pitches. They're fighting for a division, trying to improve their playoff seeding. I wouldn't be surprised if he has an extremely long leash if things are going very well here. Seattle is a team that strikes out a bunch as well. So I love the ceiling for Verlander. He's not 10K anymore. He's only 8,500. I noticed the pitching pricing on this slate is very soft, and it's probably just because it's a 3-game slate, but even Blake Snell is really cheap. But 8,500 for Verlander, I don't need 9 or 10 strikeouts at that price. But I do think he has that type of upside here in this matchup against Seattle. And again, if he's pitching well, I could see Houston just letting him go 7-8 innings and 110 pitches in this spot, just trying to secure the win.
Yeah, so I mean, you mentioned how like pitching pricing is soft. It is definitely one of those slates where you're trying to nail the two highest scoring pitchers. You're not worried about, oh, this guy has this amount of value, X amount of value. Like you're going to be able to do a lot of whatever you want with your bats and your hitters. It's a soft pricing slate. There's Monday Night Football with 2 games, and I mean we're getting a pretty soft pricing slate overall. I mean some of the hitters as well. So yeah, I mean, I think this is a great spot for Verlander. I think Verlander Snell is the chalk combo on like DraftKings, which makes Luis Castillo very interesting to me. Like he is someone that is extremely talented. He's been pitching phenomenal. Over his last 5 games, he has at least 25 fantasy points in I think 6 of his last 7, 5 of his last 6, or something like that. It's a good number. I think he's the lower owned of the 3 studs, and I could see playing him over Snell or Verlander. I think we're all going to agree Blake Snell is the guy today. So maybe you're looking at Castillo over Verlander. Like this is an extremely tough matchup. No one's going to tell you the Astros matchup is easy. They're back to their Astro ways of their strikeout rates under 20%. They put the ball in play. They walk a ton. Like you don't want to typically play pitchers against the Astros, especially righties, but it's a 3-game slate.
Yeah, extremely difficult matchup, but 3-game slate is exactly right. Like we can't just play Snell and Verlander in every single lineup and expect to win a tournament. So looking for pivots, I think Castillo makes a ton of sense. It's a poor strikeout matchup, but if Verlander gives up 4 runs or something like that, you don't need him to have a massive game. You just need him to outscore Verlander is basically the thing. I think there's a great chance Sandoval and Gray both give up runs as well. So if Castillo's the second highest scoring pitcher on the slate, you're looking pretty good, even if he doesn't have that great of a game. Like I think you could settle for 15 to 20 points here if that's the second highest scorer on the slate. So definitely in play. You know he has a super long leash. He should get 100 pitches in the spot. They should ride with their stud. Like Seattle fighting for that AL West as well. So a game that they care about, a game they want to win. Castillo has had success in big games before. Definitely think it's a solid pivot.
All right, let's talk about bats. I think this is a game that has the most upside for bats, but also going to have the lowest ownership for bats, if that makes any kind of sense. 7 total compared to the other 2 games. I don't think we have a total up yet for the San Francisco game, but I expect that total to be higher than 7. Houston, like I said, like I was just talking about as far as like Castillo is concerned, like this is a team that walks a lot. They put the ball in play a lot. They don't strike out. They have power. You know, it's a tough lineup to face, and they're expensive, but like I think like you can still make any kind of stack you want work with good pitching today because of pricing. What are your thoughts on the Astros bats?
Yeah, I think I prefer the other side. Just because like when I'm pivoting to Castillo, I don't know. It like the pricing is tough on Houston a little bit. And like this is probably a slate that I'm generally a 5-3 stack as much as I can. I'm okay with a 5-3 one-offs as well. Maybe on this slate I'm not quite 5-man stacking just because of the way it works out, and we have these like I don't think Houston's going for 6 runs off of Castillo. Maybe they get there off of the bullpen, but Seattle's bullpen is really good as well. So Houston, it's going to be an ownership play. You're going to be targeting a low-owned Alvarez and Tucker first, I think. I don't know if I would full stack them just because Castillo is so good, but I mean, I suppose there's a path. I think that I just keep it to 3-man for Houston though. And I play quite a bit of Castillo, I think is how I handle the slate though. Just first look.
We were talking about how you could get different with the 2-game football slate. I think even on this 3-game baseball slate, like you could take 1 or 2 hitters against your pitcher. I don't think that's a bad thing. Again, this is one of those slates when you're looking at the pitchers and you're going, I want the 2 highest scoring guys. Point per dollar, doesn't matter. I want the 2 highest scoring guys. I don't think any of these guys are perfect today. Maybe Blake Snell would be the closest thing to like this guy shuts down this offense. But that's just because the Giants have been awful against lefties and he is trying to win the Cy Young. So, but yeah, overall, for Houston, definitely don't mind, targeting some of these power bats today. Seattle, they're cheap. Like I get that they're facing Verlander, but like outside of like Julio Rodriguez, everybody else is under 4,500. And I think the natural pivot, like you said, is Castillo off of Verlander, and then potentially taking some of the Seattle bats against Verlander and just hoping that he doesn't have it today.
Yeah, that's the build that makes a ton of sense to me. Like if I'm not playing the chalk pitcher combination, like if I'm playing for Verlander to fail anyway, I might as well stack a couple of bats up against him. So I think that would be my preferred build rather than trying to find Houston putting up a bunch of runs against Castillo. Stacking up this Seattle offense is my preferred route. For one, they're a lot cheaper, like you mentioned. We've got like Suarez down here at 3,900, Kelnick at 3,700. Those are probably my 2 favorite price adjusted. Julio is still an elite price, 6,300. Teoscar has a ton of power at 4,400. Cal Raleigh power at the catcher position. Like they're just the way the Seattle stack sets up. They're cheap at the bottom, and Raleigh at the catcher position, it has elite upside. I think stacking up some Seattle here and as a way to differentiate as well with as popular as we think Verlander might get. Stacking up Seattle is a great way to get different.
All right, San Diego at San Francisco. No total in this game. Snell against. It sounds like Logan Webb will be pitching for the Giants today. Blake Snell. We kind of alluded to it. Like, if I build 3 teams, I might play him on all 3 today. I don't see the reason to not play him today outside of ownership. But he should be the highest scoring pitcher on the slate.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal pitcher in a phenomenal matchup. San Francisco strikes out a ton. Blake Snell has one of the highest strikeout rates in the league. He's only 9,600. It's not going to be difficult to fit him in. We just talked about how cheap Seattle is if you want to go that route. Even Texas has some cheap options that I like at the bottom of the order. It's going to be easy to fit him and even one of Verlander or Castillo, whichever your preference is there. However many lineups I was making on the slate, Blake Snell would be a lock button for me.
I will say one way, like in a large field tournament, to get very different on this slate. Like if you're playing 5,000 plus entry tournament and you want to get different on this slate, Giants bats with Verlander and Castillo is not going to be owned. And it is the ultra contrarian. It's not the smartest play in the world on paper, but like if you wanna build that like nobody else is on, it makes some little bit of sense to be like, I'm gonna play the other two pitchers on the slate that are very talented. Hope that that's like a 1-0 game, and that Blake Snell just doesn't have it. He should be the highest scoring pitcher on the slate. He has been pitching phenomenal. He's gone over 100 pitches in 4 of his last 5 games. He has at least 8 strikeouts in 6 straight games, 7 of his last 9. Yeah, he wants that Cy Young. For a guy that like can just get really wild and struggle from time to time, it's the only reason that I say like maybe just to be like that uber contrarian build. That's it. That's the only reason. Logan Webb, other side of this game. I mean, I think Logan Webb's somewhat interesting from a tournament perspective on this slate, just because like the Padres have been hit or miss this season. Is this a spot we take a shot on Logan Webb because it's a 3-game slate and we don't have a ton of options elsewhere?
I think I prefer to build heavy with whichever of Verlander Castillo is less popular. The strikeout upside isn't there. San Diego doesn't strike out a ton. San Diego's also been really hot. Once they got eliminated from the playoffs, San Diego remembered how to hit the baseball again. So this is not a great matchup. They're very patient. They don't strike out very much. The other thing, though, is Webb struggles with lefties a lot more than he does with righties, and San Diego can't get very left-handed on him. I mean, he's in play. I think you're probably playing the top 4 guys on this slate, unless like if you're only building 3 lineups, maybe leave Webb out, but he's certainly in the conversation. I'm a little bit worried about the upside, but it's not like he's expensive. He's $7,900. That's a very clear SP2 price. You just have to hope that Castillo and Verlander don't put up really solid performances. But you love the leash, you love the ballpark. It's the strikeout upside and the dangerous Padres bats are the thing.
All right, Padres bats here. I mean, talent-wise, they're a phenomenal stack. Just looking at the lineup, they've been one of the most disappointing teams I think all season. What are your thoughts here on the Padres?
Yeah, I mean, they have been hitting better recently, as I mentioned, but they're really expensive. Like, I think I'd rather take shots on Houston before I went the San Diego route. Just Webb's still a really strong pitcher. He's more of a ground ball guy than a strikeout guy, which is why I prefer to play the other two. But Webb himself is excellent. Again, I think this falls into the same bucket as Houston for me. I'm fine playing a couple of these guys. I just don't think like Webb's not a guy I want a full stack against. He generates a ton of ground balls. He has great control, tough ballpark here. So 2 or 3 of them I'm totally fine with. I think Soto in this spot, like I've talked about the lefties. Kim has had a phenomenal season. He has some stolen base upside as well. Those are probably my 2 favorites. But if you want to go full stack, like there's obviously tons of talent in this lineup.
I kind of said like the Giants bats don't make a lot of sense here whatsoever. The only thing that makes sense is like you just get a really bad Blake Snell game and they beat him. That's the only reason I think you're playing Giants today.
Yeah, you certainly. I don't like Snell's not a guy I try to hunt home runs off of. Snell is a guy you stack against because of those control issues. Like that walk rate is still sky high. He always seems to find his way out of it. It's because of his elite strikeout ability. Like the Giants are not a fun team to stack either because of the pinch hit stuff. I don't know how many lefties are in the San Diego bullpen. That's something I would definitely check on before lock here, because there's always going to be pinch hit risk with the Giants, but it's the game theory aspect of this, like you were talking about, would be the only argument you can make here.
All right, let's play the morning grind game. We're going to play an abbreviated morning grind game today. Give me any pitcher of the 6 pitchers you think that's going to get 6 or more strikeouts today.
Any pitcher?
Any pitcher.
Well, I mean, Blake Snell.
Well, I mean, if you want to take it, that's fine. I'll go Verlander.
I think John Gray has an outside chance to get 6 strikeouts. That's the guy I was going to go with when I thought we were going to play by original rules. But I mean, obviously Blake Snell has hit, like, Gray's strikeout props probably going to come out at like 4.5. But I think he legitimately has a chance to get 6.
Any pitcher to score under 15. Who's your bust today?
Man, give me. I won't go Sandoval. Obvious. That's the obvious one. I will go with Webb.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go John Gray just because like he has been pitching awful, and I think like the Angels are interesting. I mean, John Gray has given up at least 1 home run in 5 straight games, so like I think the Angels are a way you could potentially get different. You are going to get Texas bullpen really early if they start pounding John Gray, but I mean, at that point, you hope your damage is done. Over 4K to hit a home run today. Who's going yard?
Give me. Let's see here. Give me Suarez to take Verlander deep.
Oh, I like it.
He's not even over 4K actually, but
oh well, you can't take
sticking with it.
No, against the rules.
All right, fine.
We'll let it stick. Oh, there you go. I mean, now you could just say him for your 2 hits, but I'll go Josh Jung to hit a home run today. I like the spot for him. Under 4K to get 2 hits. Who's a cheap bat that you like?
Give me Leody Taveras for Texas.
All right. I'm going to go Brent Phillips. I don't know when the last time he had a 2-hit game was. Oh, actually, September 13th, not too long ago. Like, this is a guy that, I mean, this is your opportunity, man. Take advantage of it. Stack to score 6 or more runs today.
Texas is the top spot on the slate for me, for sure.
I'm going to go Angels. I think I'm going to build a Angels-Texas game stack with either Verlander or Castillo and Snell, and just let a single entry rip on the slate. That's kind of where I'm at build-wise, just looking at the slate overall. So, Keith, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Baseball season winding down. We got, a week and a half left is all. So enjoy it while it lasts. Head into some playoffs and enjoy the football as well.
Yeah, playoff baseball is just not like playoff basketball to me for DFS. Like, I love playoff basketball for DFS. Playoff baseball is just so tough because like pitchers get in trouble and you get bullpen. You get like the 4th or 5th starter coming in and working a long period and pitching well. And playoff baseball is tough. So enjoy the last week here. And still plenty of contests out there. Plenty of content coming here from RotoGrinders. We got you guys covered. Hope everyone has a fantastic Monday. We'll be back tomorrow talking baseball. Good luck, everyone. We'll see you then.